And okay, so welcome to tonight's educational session, Ag Education on a Budget. We want to give a shout out to the Red River Valley Fair for sponsoring tonight's education session. So thank you to the Red River Valley Fair in Fargo. Upcoming events, our next educational session is going to be Thursday, May 20th. We don't have a topic for that yet. However, mark your calendars for Thursday, May 20th. And then also another shout out for our annual convention will be in November 18th through the 20th at the Best Western Ramkota in Aberdeen. We're working on getting information sent out regarding the scholarship opportunity through Spectrum Weather Insurance. We will also be sending showcasing information, trade show information, and then how to make your reservations at the hotel itself. And then we are going to jump right into our showcase for tonight, which is a BubbleYou Bubble Tower, the world's biggest bubble toy. For over 15 years, this self-contained attraction has amazed and delighted young and old. From the Anchorage Summer Solstice Festival to the Pasadena, Texas Strawberry Festival, the Utah State Fair, and the Campbell, Wyoming County Fair, audiences of all ages have delighted in the nonstop bubble storm. Gobs of soap bubbles the size of bushel baskets blast from the top of a 14-foot tall solar-powered BubbleYou Bubble Tower, the world's largest bubble toy and giant fun hand washing station. Self-contained, the bubble tower can be set up at any level surface, including grass and pavement. Solar powered with battery pack for trouble-free day and night operation. With a compact 14-foot square footprint, the bubble tower offers exciting marketing and branding opportunities on the four legs of the bubble tower. With no waiting in line, entertaining for spectators and participants, children, teens, and adults of all ages are captivated by the endless variety of shapes, sizes, colors, and movement of the bubbles. Photographers and the press will delight as the bubble tower produces clouds of singular bubbles, as well as bubble clusters and size of bushel baskets. Available in a number of color schemes to meet your theme, including the Americana red, white, and blue, rainbow, tie-dye, and cow bubble tower. Custom design requests welcome. More information can be found at bubbletower.com or Bubble Tower on Facebook. And we do have a quick video to share. So one moment here.
Colorful, playful, effervescent bubbles will fill the sky at your next event. The solar-powered bubble tower is just the attraction to captivate old, young, teens, and 20s. More than just an amusement, the bubble tower will become a landmark for your fair or festival. The fun and the sheer size of the tower make it a people magnet, drawing traffic from all over the grounds. The legs of the tower can be fitted with banners advertising your sponsors or to promote upcoming events. Because the tower is rechargeable and solar powered, it can be placed anywhere you need it to be, with no worries about wiring or people tripping over cords. you'll see everyone return to a childlike wonder. Nobody can resist the urge to touch, to play, to smile. It's the world's largest bubble toy. Call now to arrange the Bubble Tower for your event. The Bubble Tower, sure to make your next event pop.
I said, okay, yeah.
Okay, so the Bubble Tower can be rented through Bill Coleman Entertainment. And also, as a reminder, an email will go out tomorrow. So if you weren't able to view that video very clearly, it'll be in an email and then also on a Facebook post tomorrow. And I'm going to mute somebody. Okay. All right. Can everybody hear me though?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. All right. So now for the main event of our evening, we have Egg Education on a Budget, presented by Emily Grunwald of Livestock and Big Iron Coordinator of the River Valley Fair. Emily was recently recognized as a rising star during the International Association of Fairs and Expositions, IAFE, 129th Annual Convention, which was in 2019. The Rising Star Award was created by the IFE Young Professionals Initiative to recognize leadership and industry contributions of young IAFE members. As the Fair Livestock and Big Iron Farm Show Coordinator, Grunwald is driven, hardworking, and makes the encouragement of the youth her #1 priority during fair time. Grunwald works with the Fair's Egg Education Center to present pertinent topics that teach new attendees and new exciting topics in the farm and fork areas of the center. During the fair, she works closely with all of her livestock superintendents to make sure that they have the proper training and everything necessary to do their duties. She currently serves or has recently served as the vice chair of the IAFE YPI steering committee and serves as a member of the IAFE membership, agriculture, and convention planning committees. She graduated from IAFE Institute of Fair Management in 2017. So let's all welcome Emily, and she will be visiting with us about egg education on a budget. So Emily, I'm gonna make you the host so you can share your screen.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Tara, for that introduction. So as Tara said, I am the Director of Livestock at the Red River Valley Fair. I have grown up in the agriculture industry and having my family in that same category. So with that, we have a lot of ag education that we pass around to the people in our community and through the fair. So as we all know, farmers don't have that big of a budget. So we tried that at the Red River Valley Fair, though we would love to have some of those large budgets and the state fair budgets and all. That's just not possible sometimes. So our ag education center at our fairgrounds has very minimal budget, and we have thrived very much here in the past couple years, minus the COVID of 2020. So with that, I grew up in the agriculture industry in the Central Coast. My family had a commercial cattle ranch where I also showed livestock. We raised registered Angus cattle, and now I have moved my family halfway across the United States to Minnesota, where we raise hogs, cattle, market goats, meat turkeys, meat chickens, and laying hens, pretty much all for the purpose of ag education and our kids showing 4-H. So here are a few photos of our family and doing what we do with our livestock. I am an avid Starbucks-aholic, so we have to always put that little chime in. And in the bottom right corner there, that is actually me out in California doing Ag Day on the farm, where we would bring our cattle to a location with other people in the industry and teach thousands of third graders, I believe it was, about everything in regards to the agriculture industry. So why do we need ag education, and where does our food come from? 98% of people have little to no knowledge about agriculture, and farm and ranch families make up less than 2% of the US population. The average American is now at least 3 generations removed from the farm. So people don't understand the importance of agriculture or why money needs to be spent to maintain the agriculture infrastructure. And that's where us county fairs are going to come in, because people are going to come to our fairs, and though fairs do have carnivals, fairs do have concerts and all that, our number one thing is we're county fairs. It's agriculture, and that this is probably the only place some of these kids are going to see any animals. So we've got to bridge that gap and make the public knowledgeable about where their food comes from. So that brings us to the Cass County Farm Bureau Ag Education Center. We do have a 10-day fair this year. So we will be able to touch the lives of that many more children in the ag education world. So the first thing we need to do is we need to have a plan. This is our plan of the Ag Education Center. So you kind of follow the footsteps around there. It's kind of like follow the yellow brick road kind of thing, but when people first come in, they will go to the left, and mainly that is for sanitation purposes, because we have that sink on the exit side. So we need to come up with this plan so that when we go and meet with our partners, we show them what our plan is, and they get very excited about this plan, because when you see this plan here, it looks very involved. There's many different aspects of agriculture. So you would come up with a map and a plan, and then you would meet with your partners. These are just some of our partners. As you saw, we are the Cass County Ag Education, Farm Bureau Ag Education Center. So they are a main sponsor of our Ag Education Center. We also partner with the North Dakota Soybean Council, North Dakota Wheat Commission, Dairy, the Corn Council, all those folks. And we all come together. So these people may not give us money, but they give us a trade for goods. So, and a large portion of these people come in and they volunteer in our center, and or they also have a table in there in which they're helping us educate the kids and their families. So the first thing you'll see when you come into our Ag Education Center is you'll see a greeting station. This greeting station is going to inform the visitors of what to expect when entering the building. The visitors will be handed out a bucket. And with that, they'll receive a checklist and a pencil. And on the back of that checklist, there's also recipes for some of the commodities that they will see in the building. So at the bottom, you'll see that cheeseburger mac, because every kid loves cheeseburger macaroni and cheese. So there is recipes, different recipes on the backs of them. And so these kids will go home sometimes and learn, after learning about agriculture, and cook some of these meals with their families. And then we'll direct them to the starting point. So the first thing they're going to come through with is the commodities. They're going to visit each station of commodities and harvest their crops. So one thing new that we added a few years ago is each child is going to become a farmer. They're going to live their life of a farmer through our building. So they're handed a bucket when they go to the greeting station, and they have that pencil and that checklist will tell them each thing they need to collect in their bucket. So they're going to go to the sugar beet station and they're going to learn about sugar beets and they're going to pick up a packet of sugar. Then they're going to go to the sunflower station and we'll have a representative with sunflowers there, and they're going to learn about sunflowers and they will collect a little package of sunflower seeds. And the same goes for the soybeans, the corn, and the wheat. So here are some photos of some of those stations. And some of these stations pre-COVID had little samples kids could take home, like little packets of sun butter that kids could take home and open later and try what sun butter looks like or tastes like. We also have visuals. So kids live off of visuals. Some kids are so young that they can't visualize how many loaves of bread that a bushel, 2 bushels of wheat make. So we actually get the amount that 2 bushels of wheat make, and we put it on a shelf so those kids could physically see that 2 bushels of meat will make all of this, and we'll have the pasta there, we'll have the bread there. And so they'll physically be able to see that and put that together in a better aspect to say, like, wow, 2 bushels of wheat make all of this. We also partner with the North Dakota Department of Agriculture, which is some of those photos in the lower center and to the right there. And there's all the byproducts of what wheat makes, what corn makes, what soybeans make, all that. And so they'll be able to put that perspective into a visualization of, wow, I ate these, Cheez-Its yesterday, and that is a byproduct of such and such. So another example is fireworks. So right before our fair, we just happen to have fireworks for sale at our fairgrounds. And they set fireworks off sometimes to give people demonstrations of what those fireworks will do. And so fireworks are actually have the byproduct of soybeans in them. So we have a display of fireworks there. So kids that just came from the 4th of July can kind of put that into perspective as well. And then throughout that area, we have some fun facts, like the elevators in the Statue of Liberty use soybean-based hydraulic fluid to power them. Or it takes 9 seconds to harvest enough wheat to make 70 loaves of bread. There are 600 kernels on each ear of corn. Soy ink is used to print textbooks and newspapers. A family of 4 can live 10 years off of bread produced by 1 acre of wheat. And on average, each American consumes 53 pounds of bread each year. So there's more as well, but these little facts are all throughout that commodity area. So kids or their parents are kind of reading them these facts saying, wow, there's 600 kernels of corn kernels in each ear of corn. That kind of puts, some interesting perspectives into their minds. So then they go to the granary and the grinding station. So kids love hands-on, and we have been trying for many years to get a workable grinding station, but kids are rough on things. So this past year, actually in 2019, we were able to get a workable grinding station that our operations crew built by some wood that we had extra in the shop and some plexiglass. And so the children will take their commodities to the granary to harvest their commodities, just as a farmer would do. Here they would make flour for their bread and pasta and feed for their livestock. So here on the left side, you'll see the 2 kids and their mom reading about the granary and the elevator, and they're dropping their little seeds of packets of commodities into the buckets. And then they would go over where this little boy is on the right to the grinding station, where we have a bucket to the side with a scoop, and they could fill it with any commodity they would choose. And they can see how physically a grinder works. Now, when it comes to safety, these grinders do have, these are the grinders that have the safety features, so their fingers would not get in there. That was a very big thing for us, is safety. So they can only turn that handle and cannot reach their hands down into the grinder. So then we move on to the poultry. Here we have an incubator, a hatcher, many nesting boxes, live chicks, meat turkeys, and the visitors will grab it's a fake egg to harvest to put in their harvest buckets. And here are some photos. Out of all of these photos, the only thing we purchased was the incubator. Our operations team built the little red barn that it sits on. We partnered with Coca-Cola, and they had an old refrigerator that was of no use anymore. So they wrapped it for us, and we turned it in to a heating unit where the chicks are going to sit for the couple days after they're hatched out. And then you see the table, our hatchery there, where the kids can sit at a table and watch the chicks hatch. So none of this cost us any funds except for that incubator. So then, of course, we have these fun facts as well. So you can tell whether an egg is fresh or stale by dropping it into the water. A fresh egg will sink and a stale or old egg will float. So don't eat the floating eggs. A young female is called a pullet, and a mature female is called a hen. A young male is called a cockerel, and a mature male is called a rooster. You can tell what color of egg a hen will lay by the color of their ears. Chickens can taste saltiness, but not sweetness. A hen has to eat about 4 pounds of feed to make 1 dozen eggs. And the heaviest turkey ever raised weighed 86 pounds, which is about the size of the average 3rd grader. Then we go to the beef. We have a hamburger box display. The North Dakota Cattle Women's have a display. We have a beef calf, which is a bottle calf. And the visitors will gather a piece of leather from their harvest buckets. So when working on your education center, people have sticky fingers, we found out. So we used to do a baseball that was donated by the North Dakota Beef. But by the end of fair, we didn't have any baseballs left. So none of them got turned in. So we had to come up with a plan B of another byproduct of cattle, which we could put out for people to harvest, but yet wouldn't necessarily walk away. So that's when we came to the leather pieces, because that's a big thing, byproduct of cattle. So to the left is the Cattle Women's display. The center is the Cattle Women's display. And then the quarter pounder display is a huge hit. Again, this is our operations team made this for us. It is actually on, we used to take wire and we would fold these boxes up every year. And then at the end of the fair, we would unfold them and pile them back up into a bag. And after pretty much 2 years, they were non-usable. And so we wanted to build something that we didn't have to break down every year. So we had the guys build this, and it's actually built on a pallet. So it just goes and it doesn't need to be broken down each year, and it goes up on top of our storage unit. So the 1,000-pound cow averages about 1,800 quarter pounders. So almost every kid knows what a quarter pounder is, and that kind of puts that visual perspective in their minds. And so we partnered with McDonald's right down the road from our fairgrounds, and they donated these quarter pounder boxes for us. And some fun facts that kids like to see are there are about 1.7 million head of cattle in North Dakota, 29 cuts of beef meet the government guidelines for lean. The United States and Brazil are the top beef producing countries in the world. The average cow has more than 4,000 jaw movements per day. More than 100 medicines, including insulin and estrogen, come from cattle, and one cowhide can produce enough leather to make 20 footballs, or 18 soccer balls, or 18 volleyballs, or 12 basketballs. So that last one really puts that perspective in mind for kids, because we tried to put things in there that kids use on a daily basis. And those footballs, soccer balls, volleyballs, or basketballs are something that kids love to play with. So when they think of 20 footballs out of a cowhide, that they're like, wow, or same with the basketballs. So we try to think of things that they use in their everyday life that they can compare with. And then we always get this question in our ag education center because cows lick their noses, and that is so disgusting to kids that do not live on a farm. So we like to teach them about the reason behind this. So as cows are breathing, they're breathing in bacteria. And so we as humans do the exact same thing, but we have the luxury of being able to wipe our nose and blow our nose. But cows don't have that luxury. So in order to prevent that bacteria from going into their lungs, the bacteria catches on the saliva that is on their nose, and then they lick that saliva off their nose and they swallow it, and the acid in their stomach kills that bacteria. So by cows licking their nose, it's actually keeping them healthy. So a cow with a dry nose is not a healthy cow. That cow is then breathing in that bacteria. So when they hear that, it's still disgusting, but it gives them a better perspective of why. And then they go around talking about what they learned on why cows do that. And then we go to the swine. So we partner with NDSU and we purchase these hogs from them. Due to biosecurity reasons, these hogs cannot go back to NDSU. So then we acquire a sow and her piglets and 2 to 3 market hogs each year. And they are put on display. And so visitors will gather, again, sticky fingers. First year we tried this, we did paintbrushes because every kid usually uses a paintbrush in school. And then they could put that perspective on something they use on a daily basis to a byproduct of an animal. However, we started running out of paintbrushes. So we went to dog treats that look like bacon. These had to go into a plastic bag and with the little label on it that says do not consume, because we knew that would eventually happen. But so that way they can see the byproduct of a hog, which is bacon. We also have a 2-scale barn of what the NDSU unit looks like, so people can put into perspective what a working hog barn looks like. And we also have a farrowing stall on display because there is lots of talk about how a farrowing stall is animal abuse, and it's actually far from that. So we like to, as an ag education unit, educate the public on why farmers use those farrowing crates. And so when we let them know that it provides a safe birthing center for the sow and prevents the sow from injuring or lying on her piglets, people kind of take a step back and understand, well, that makes sense. And, we're glad you're keeping the piglets safe. We do not use the farrowing crate during fair. It's just on display only because it does have to be this farrowing crate that we have, which was one of mine. It has to be screwed to the ground, and we have to run plumbing for water and all that in there. And we use this building for other events during the year. So I really don't want to be putting any permanent holes in the ground when we use them for other venues. So that is a huge educational purpose for the public that has always been a praised thing when they read that sign, and you could kind of see the look on their face when they're like, oh, we didn't know that. So some fun facts about hogs that we put out on signs are there are about 160,000 pigs in North Dakota. A piglet weighs about 3.5 pounds at birth and doubles its weight within 7 days. A pig drinks up to 14 gallons of water a day. Pigs have 4 toes on each foot, but they only walk on 2. There are about 2 billion pigs on Earth. Pigs are actually very clean animals. If given enough space, they will be careful not to soil to the area in which they sleep or eat. Pigs are actually unable to sweat, and they like to bathe in water or mud to keep cool, and they actually prefer water to mud. So the pigs are actually unable to sweat is a huge educational thing that we push, because people see muddy pigs and they think that they're absolutely disgusting and dirty animals, whereas they use that because they cannot sweat, so they have to keep cool, but they also use the mud as as like a suntan lotion so they don't burn. And then we go to the dairy area. We do have Daisy, the milking cow, a dairy calf. We have a full dairy display, and visitors will then gather a milk carton for their harvest. So here on the left, you'll see that we actually had a wedding at our fair here a couple years ago, and it had to be one of the pictures that the bride wanted to take with the dairy calf. So the dairy calf is a huge hit at our fairgrounds. We actually also do a naming bucket. So the farmer that brings in the dairy calf lets us know what letter that dairy calf has to start with. And we put out a couple options for names, and the public gets to have a vote on that. And on the last day of fair, we'll announce what that winning name will be. And the farmer does keep that name for that calf. We do partner with the Dairy Coalition. And so we have a lot of signage. We partnered with Cass Clay. They provided us empty milk cartons that kids would be handed at school, because again, that puts that everyday perspective into what kids see. When you ask a kid at school, most of the time they say their milk comes from the grocery store. So when they come to the Ag Education building and they have to collect the milk carton and they say, oh, well, I drink this at school all the time. And they get to put that correlation into the fact that, oh, well, milk doesn't come from the grocery store, it comes from a dairy cow. We also have a big coloring mural in the back there by Daisy that people get to come and color. And we have a repeat video always running of information about dairy that the North Dakota dairy farmers helped us build. And they provide us an updated video each year so people can see what a working barn working dairy barn looks like, and it also has other dairy facts within the dairy industry for people to stand and watch. So the facts about dairy cattle are really catch people's eye. There are about 350 squirts in a gallon of milk, and no joke, I can tell you that many people go home and they try to test that out with or they'll go over to Daisy and they'll see what 350 squirts looks like. The average dairy cow produces 22.5 quarts or 60 pounds or 90 glasses of milk in a day, 1,500 gallons or 16,000 glasses of milk in a year, and 18,750 gallons or 200,000 glasses of milk in a lifetime. A cow that is milking drinks about 30 to 50 gallons of water each day. An average Holstein dairy cow weighs about 1,500 pounds. And cows only have one stomach with 4 compartments, which is the rumen, the reticulum, the omasum, and the abomasum. So a lot of people who are from the ag industry, they'll say that a cow has 4 stomachs, where in fact it's one stomach with 4 pouches. So then we come to the goats. The little goats to the left there, the 4 baby goats, they were bottle goats that year, and they are actually still very much part of ag education today because they live at my house. So we teach people about goats. Of course, we do not have any byproducts of goats because meat goats is pretty straightforward. It's meat. So we just do more of an educational thing for them and put them on display. And of course, as babies, they're a huge hit to kids. Kids love babies. So here to the right, you will actually see 2 out of 4 of those same goats on display the following year of fair. So goat meat is the most common meat per capita in the worldwide. And even though people say that goats eat everything, goats are actually extremely picky eaters. And they often refuse to eat hay that they have walked on. Goats are herd animals and will be depressed if alone. And if you look closely at goats' eyes, they are actually triangle pupils. So they have a 320 to a 340 degree vision radius. Us as humans only have 160 to 210. So that is why it's extremely hard to sneak up and catch a goat, because they can see behind their heads. Goats have excellent night vision, and goat meat is one of the most popular meats on the planet, mainly outside the United States, but it is gradually becoming more popular within the United States. And goats have natural oils that help repel ticks. So then we move to sheep. Sheep provide many products, and visitors will gather yarn for their harvest buckets. So the first year we did use wool. Second year we tried to move it up a little bit, so to the next step, so we did use yarn. And adult female sheep are known as ewes. Adult male sheep are known as rams. Young sheep are called lambs. Sheep have a field vision of around 300 degrees, allowing them to see behind themselves without having to turn their heads. Lanolin from sheep is used for makeup and hand creams. Moms love that one. Waxes from sheep are used for candles. Fats from sheep are used for soaps. Again, parents love that one. And stearin from sheep are used for gum and candy, which kids think is absolutely disgusting. And so sometimes it helps with that department of our kids not eating candy or gum. And so then you'll come across the entire center of our barn is this live animal display of animals roaming. We have goats, chickens, turkeys. 2019, we had a gentleman that insisted on bringing his little piglet in there. So we had a pig in there, and people like to just sit there and watch the animals interact. We have these cutouts as well, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But this live interaction where you get to see animals actually roaming in a pasture. We put the barn in the back. These were all made by our staff. So we put this barn in the back. So it was more of a little bit more of a photo opportunity for parents to be taking pictures with their children in the little farm setting. So then the North Dakota Farm Bureau asked us one day, what is something that you guys need in ag education? So we do have an area where people can see what their cuts of meat look like when they go to the grocery store in the meat department. We went out each year, and this was probably our biggest expense, and we went out and purchased all this meat. And then of course, after sitting in a fridge for 6 days, it's not consumable, and we ended up having to throw it all away. So we wanted to get something realistic that we could use year after year. So we were able to find this meat, which looks realistic, but is actually fake. And the North Dakota Farm Bureau purchased this for us. So we have all this realistic looking meat where kids can come and say, oh, well, there's a turkey or, hot dogs. And they could see that all of this comes from a byproduct of one of these animals they've already learned about. So again, if you go out and ask your farm bureaus, they're huge, huge advocates for agriculture. There's county farm bureaus as well. People within the ag industry in your towns, they're huge advocates for letting people know about agriculture. And you should be able to find a sponsor that would at least help purchase some of these. So then within each of our volunteers at our fairs and or our staff, everybody has a talent. So we have had a very talented individual on our staff that was very artistic. And a very important thing to me was people needed to know where their cuts of meat came from. So I'm not sure if everybody on here remembers, but many years ago when Jody Baresh was an employee at the fairgrounds, we got a lot of publicity off the fact that we went up and marked up a market hog with chalk and had all the cuts of meat on it. So again, something we can use year after year. We went and did this on wood with each of the animals in our building. So we had a staff member who sat and cut each of these out and painted them and put these cuts on them. They even made the horse, the cow, the pigs, the skunk, the rabbit. All of that is handmade by one of our employees. So These were huge hits and at the same time, very educational. So now that kids and their families have learned about the seeds and the commodities, we wanted to show them what these commodities look like when they are driving down the interstate and looking out their window. So we had wheat, we had barley, we had soybeans, we had sunflower seeds, we had sugar beets, we had all the commodities up in the front of our garden. We have a very large garden. And then in the very back, we planted your everyday garden crops, such as tomatoes, zucchini, peppers, squash, all that. So people can see an actual working garden, but at the same time, see what those different commodities look like as they're driving. So then, I'm not sure many people know, but bees are a huge thing in North Dakota. So Jonathan, our bee farmer, has a very, very informational bee display. And he actually lets the kids decorate and paint bee boxes, which he does put out on our property. And then to help the bee population, he actually even gives them a flower seed packet where they are, kind of turns into like a bee garden. So at the end of their ag education tour, they get to go to the grocery store. So at the first picture there with the little crates with the pictures on them, the kids will then drop off all of their all of the livestock byproducts that they have collected. So the eggs all the way to the bacon and the egg cartons and stuff. So you'll see some kids dropping it off there. And then we have the grocery store where they can spin the wheel to win an extra prize. But when they drop their products off at the so-called elevator or market, they will get they will get Ag Education Center bucks, which is that $3 ag buck. And so once they get their buck, they then can go to the grocery store and purchase a little trinket. So Cass County Farm Bureau has donated some little stress corns in the past. We've also had the pig, the sheep, the chicken, the cow, and we had a Hereford cow as well, along with a bee. And so we kind of switch these out each year and they can get that. But Thunder Seed, different people that volunteer in our building, soil conservation, all of them, they have little things that they donate into the bucket as well. So kids at the beginning of fair have one heck of a stash they can choose from anything from notebooks to cups to tractor stress balls. We've had like the blow up globes before. There's a large variety of things to choose from. And then each of those partners that you see on the bag, so Ag Country Farm Credit Services, North Dakota Wheat Commission, North Dakota Corn Council, and Peterson Farm Seeds, put in a couple extra dollars and got some publicity off of every person that walks into the Ag Education Center. Gets a little bit of some informational stuff that people want us to add in there. And we'll put their grocery store purchase in there, and they can then have that extra publicity when they go home and talk about their day being a farmer. So we then have a place where kids can color, which will give adults a chance to relax for a moment while the kids do their activity. We then hang those coloring sheets up on the fence, or they can take them home. We also have a large TV at this area that that keeps looping around with informational videos. We have a STEM area at the end as well, where people can learn about working engines. We have a board member who is a retired engineer, and he makes all of these STEM items on his downtime, I guess, during the year. So it changes up each year. So it's kind of a hands-on area where people can see where or how an engine works. This area has actually grown so much. This area will not be in our Ag Education Center this year. It'll actually be in a building by itself. And so these are some of the do you know posters that I was talking about. I know we've gone over some of them already, but these are kind of eye-catching things that we have scattered throughout our entire building. These are all printed in-house at our fairgrounds, so it is very limited cost to us. A lot of people don't know that the North Dakota State beverage is actually milk, not beer. And so, of course, ag education doesn't end on the last day of fair. As ag education people, those of us that live on a farm and are able to do that, it needs to continue outside. So I live in a small town about 20 miles, 30 miles from West Fargo. And a lot of these kids, being that there's a county fair in our town, physical town, the same week as the Red River Valley Fair, they don't get a chance to come up to the Red River Valley Fair and have an ag education center. So we actually have a large portion of kids in our town that are friends with their kids, or that parents just want them to come and see an animal, that come out to our farm. And so here are some photos of kids actually coming out to our farm just to see the animals, whether it be to pet a cow, to hold a chicken, bottle feed a goat, even, as you can see, the young man Dawson there, to move some straw bales and have a day on the farm. And we have to show those people and those families we have to tell our story, and what pride and passion we put into our animals. Animals are not abused. We love our animals, and they're the byproducts of everything we use. There's no such thing in my mind as a vegan. There's no such thing as a vegetarian, because there are so many byproducts of animals that people use in everyday use that they don't realize, whether it even be something in your home. So these are pictures of kids. Some of them, of course, are mine, but like none of these kids here are my children, and they come out just for a day on the farm. And in return, they get to take home, if they come to the farm and they collect eggs, they get to turn around and take a dozen eggs home to feed their family. And then when those kids learn that these animals are actually going to be at the Ag Education Center at the Red River Valley Fair, such as the young man that you see with the chicken on his shoulder, and then he's bottle feeding some goats. You can see him and his brother there at the Ag Education Center, and they specifically came to the Red River Valley Fair to visit Emily at the Ag Education Center and see the animals. And in that time, they got an education. So we have to continue to tell our story about agriculture. So many people may see me on Facebook and see that I am always talking about my animals. I do love my animals and brag about my animals, but a lot of it is just to tell my story to the public about our animals and what we do. So you'll see our turkeys there. We're taking them to processing. 24 hours later, you see them in our freezer. And that's what feeds people in our town sometimes. So you'll see my daughter. My daughter is the spitting image of me. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. It depends who you ask. But you'll see her in the bottom left of the screen. And that was 2 days after her cow, Charlotte, gave birth to that white baby calf there, which my daughter pulled. And then she had a show and tell at school where she took pictures on her school iPad and shared it with her class of the whole process of birthing a calf. And everybody in her class now always asks her about updates on her farm. And she has to share for show and tell. In the past, she's taken some hard-boiled eggs and explained how you can tell the difference on what color egg a chicken will lay. So with that, if there's any questions.
Emily, how long does it take a family or a couple of kids to make it through the education center?
If you're going through there quickly, sometimes kids get so excited they end up running. they stop, they grab their product, they listen for a few minutes and run. If you're going on the quick side, it would probably take, maybe 20 minutes. If you want to be more informative and read more signs to the kids and kind of go slow, it could be upwards of 40 minutes. It doesn't really honestly take that long. It just depends on how much time you want to take into the educational purpose. And it also depends on the age of your kids. Younger kids don't have that much of an attention span. They want to do the physical touching, which we do have that capability. They want to do the hands-on thing. They don't care about how many bushels of wheat makes what. They want to see the animals, so it's a little quicker that way. And if a child doesn't have all of their commodities in their bucket, it's not like we're not gonna give them their food bucks or their prize. Everybody under a certain age gets a prize. I mean, we did have some people that were, in their 20s that would go through the building 3 times within an hour to get a different prize each time. And at some point we have to say, hey, we appreciate you coming, but we have to save some of the prizes for the kids. But it doesn't take that long.
So is this where you spend most of your time in the egg education building?
Setting up, yes. But during fair, actually, I've spent very limited time in the ag education building. We are currently actually hiring. So if anybody knows of anybody looking for a job in the area that has agriculture knowledge, we have an ag education coordinator that is in the building all week. And then I come in as needed. If there's a sick animal, I'll swing in, but I also swing in numerous times a day just to check on how things are going, being that it's under my branch of duties. But I also have the livestock shows that I'm running. And I'm also the IT person. So any of the buildings that are having IT issues during fair, I'm kind of watching them as well. So if it's a slower day, I spend a lot of time in there that day. But if it's a busy day, I may not get in there. I check in the morning when we're caring for the animals, in the evening to make sure everything's okay. And then if I get called over there due to a sick animal or something, then I'll swing in there as well.
Do you plan on doing things differently this year with maybe more QR codes and
Yep.
letting them run through themselves?
I'm not sure about QR codes. I think, we have the signs that are used year after year, unless there's anything that's damaged. We could possibly have some QR codes that people can scan to see those working farms. That'll go to like maybe a YouTube video or something. We will definitely have, of course, more signage due to COVID, social distancing, stuff like that. But we'll still most likely still have those did you know signs up and stuff. The only things that we may lead to QR codes with are any videos.
Does anybody else have any questions for Emily? Like, I think it's a great idea for the extent that you've gone through, but like you said, if you have a budget, you can start with just maybe 2 or 3 of the pods, if you want to call them that, and then add every year after that.
Yep. So we changed this up in 2018, I believe it was. It used to be that when people came into the ag education building, the building was wide open. You can go to any area of the building. You can run from one side to the other. There wasn't a fencing that goes around the center that holds the livestock in the STEM center. But we wanted those volunteers within the companies that partner with us and that are physically there all week trying to educate people on their commodities, such as sugar beets or sunflower seeds or wheat. We wanted to find a way for people to encourage people to go to those stations. So then we made it's kind of like, you herding cats almost. We made the route. And then as a person that has children, kids love hands-on. So we had to come up with an idea to make it hands-on. So that's where we came up with the idea of the child becoming the farmer. And so and then of course, every kid loves a prize. So in order to get them to go to those stations and collect something, our partners, so, okay, example for sugar beets. They give out a piece of wrapped candy that you would get at like Sam's Club to everybody that stops by their booth. Before we did this layout, they would get rid of like one jumbo package of the small pieces of candy a year. So in 2018, when we started this new layout, they came with their one package, and she was out of that within an hour. She had to call somebody that she knew up in the West Fargo area, because she's from Breckenridge, and ask them to go to Sam's Club and buy 15 packages. And they sold out of candy all the time, to the point where she had backup in the freezer in our volunteer room there, because that's how many people she was now touching, versus before she was touching just the amount of people that were in one of those packages. And so she was getting her education across, which was making her happy, to the point where we wanted her to feel that she was being useful in her education, so that she would continue her partnership with us. So a lot of these things that I showed you guys tonight, they cost us, if anything, very minimal money, if none. If you talk to those different commodities in your area, they come up with the educational stuff and they bring it and put it on display. If they're not able to be there, we ask them, like example, the North Dakota Wheat Commission. There's 2 people that work in the North Dakota Wheat Commission's office. One is a full-time staff member, one is an intern. They don't have the manpower to come and educate people on wheat. So we ask them, hey, we'll take care of it. You just make the signage, we'll put it, or the display, and we'll put it up on display for you. And we tell them what age group to reach for. We want to make it so that an elementary kid is interested in it. We don't want them to put information on there that a 40 or 50-year-old person is interested in, because that's not going to catch the interest of a child. And our Ag Education Center is focused to children, because if children are interested in it, it's going to lead adults in there as well. And also a lot of the information, people are so separated from the farm that information that we're teaching children is also that of what is information and learning to adults. So we have them set up the display or make the display. We will set it up. And if we have spare volunteers, which sometimes surprisingly we do, they have a little note key of some fun facts about wheat that volunteer can then read off or just jot down for those people that are visiting the booth, so that they have a little bit of education there. So those commodity displays, the animals are donated. The North Dakota cattle women, they donate their display. The only thing we had to purchase in the cattle department was the leather, which is fairly cheap. When you tell people what your purpose is and what your vision is, people get very excited about helping with ag education. You wouldn't think so, but they actually are, because people know that agriculture is so important. And so when you talk to those individuals, a lot of them will donate it all. We have purchased very little. Like I said, that meat is very expensive. We didn't purchase any of it. We didn't purchase any of the little trinkets or awards at the end. We printed the ag bucks on our printer at work. We created it, the look of it, and we printed it. So very minimal cost on it. If you talk to your 4-Hers, they'll donate an animal to bring in there during fair, to put on display.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any questions?
No questions. I just wish we had the space to do something like that. that's an area that we want to improve on, and we've talked about for a while, and you've got some great ideas that I may borrow from you.
Absolutely. Contact me anytime, Mark.
Okay, thanks.
Well, if
Well-
nobody, oh,
No, I just want to say thank you. I enjoyed presenting this to you guys, and my information's on the screen. So if you ever have any questions or need any information, reach out. I'll be glad to help anytime.
thank you, Emily. And just for closing remarks and reminders, our next education session is going to be May 20th. Again, the topic is to be determined. And then to mark your calendars for the convention in November. And lastly, a special thank you to the River Valley Fair for sponsoring tonight's educational session. Have a great night, everybody.
Night.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Have a great evening, guys.
You
Yep,
too.
thank you. Good job, Emily. It was good.
Thank you. Thanks.